We have a guest in the studio, the Honorable Peter Kaluma, MP, Homa Bay constituent. Hey, we're hosting very many people from Homa Bay, you guys. Hey.
You didn't say Homa Bay town.
Homa Bay town.
There are people from Homa Bay, and then there is one person from Homa Bay town. Yeah, others are rural. Or villages.
That's
please. Okay.
That's the distinction.
It's a distinction.
A modern, urbanized leader of urbanized, modern people.
Right.
You gotta get it right, my friend.
These are my baby people.
By the way, to be specific,
They have it.
when you're in Homa Bay town, you need to be specific. You're in Kanyada. Yes.
I didn't know you know that.
You do not just...
What does Kanyada mean?
And you didn't call it Canada.
No.
It is Canada. I call it
Okay.
Right.
What was that? She said it's called what?
Nyadi.
Nyavi.
Yes, you know that.
This is it.
This is it.
Full
personified.
display. Hi. People from Kisumu and Siaya. Please
Really?
come. Please come to the show.
Yeah.
Throw in Migori while we're at it.
And Migori.
Yes.
Yes? Well, we have a Kisumu man here, so we feel that all the time. Maybe we've gotten used to it.
Yeah, so now this is a bit.
City,
Yes.
why don't you welcome Washimiwa with the day's proverb?
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Uganda. Last week was Tanzania.
Yes.
So we're in East Africa.
Yes.
The beautiful are like a dog with big, beautiful eyes. Might turn out to be a thieving dog or a good hunter.
The beautiful.
Are like a dog with big, beautiful eyes.
Yes.
Might turn out to be a thieving dog or a good hunter.
Okay.
If you've never lived the rural life or you've never hunted with dogs, this proverb may not make sense to you. Yes.
But if you have,
you can immediately see a thieving dog is sort of dog that waits when you're eating, because a lot of eating in the rural areas is out in the open. It'll wait when people are not looking, then it'll grab something and take off. That's the thieving dog.
off.
It runs. It knows. It runs away. Yes.
Washimiwa, what do you think this proverb is telling us?
Don't judge a book by its cover. I think that is another proverb that can be used in the alternative. That really don't look at things as good and believe they are good. Like that beautiful dog, which turns out to be a thief. The beauty in the face could be deceptive. So it's alerting you simply to not being deceived.
Don't be deceived
Go beyond the skin.
by what you see. Washimiwa, we are in possession of a letter which is said to have been authored by you and sent to the attention of the Speaker of the National Assembly, dated the 22nd of February last week. Bill to prohibit homosexuality and promotion thereof. And you say, Mr. Speaker, the above matter refers, I intend to bring legislation to criminalize and punish homosexuality and other unnatural sexual acts, and to further criminalize the promotion of such acts in Kenya. The proposed law, intended to further the provisions of Article 45(2) of the Constitution of Kenya and to protect the family, will not only consolidate all existing laws relating to unnatural sexual acts, but also increase the penalty for those convicted of engaging or promoting the acts to imprisonment for life or commensurate sentence. I request your office to grant necessary facilities in and of this urgent endeavor. Yours faithfully, the Honorable George Peter Kaluma, MP, Homa Bay Town constituency. This is from you.
Yeah, that is my letter.
Is the bill ready?
Yeah, the bill is as good as ready. It will be published through the processes of Parliament as soon as the Speaker avails the facilities I've requested for.
Okay.
From my end, it is already drafted.
Okay. Okay, so what is the purpose of this? What's the reason?
Yes, I've stated the reasons in part in the letter. One is that we have so many laws dealing with the matter of homosexuality and those unnatural acts. If you look at the penal code, you'll find some provisions. You look at the Sexual Offences Act, you'll find some scant provisions. You look at the Article 45, I think particularly sub-Article 2, which I refer to in that letter, you'll find, the foundational provision. Like what we did with the Marriage Act in the 11th Parliament, I want to consolidate all those laws into one, so that you have one text of a law in Kenya you can pick, and everything to do with homosexuality, how homosexuals are to be dealt with or treated, everything to do with unnatural, sexual, behavior, including these ones in which you see people, sleeping with animals. You get a text and you have it all there. So one purpose is consolidation, that you have one text you can refer to when you're dealing with those unnatural, sexual behavior.
Okay, so let's go. Go ahead.
Is that we want to increase the penalty regime. If you look at the penal code from, sections 161 going to 165, the offenses of homosexuality and those unnatural sexual acts are provided for. The punishment where there is consent between the parties is 7 years. The punishment where, one party is not consenting is 14 years. And I believe that does not, offer necessary deterrence, does not discourage them as much as it should. So we are increasing the penalty to life imprisonment or commensurate sentence. What do I mean by commensurate sentence? The direction of the world now is not to have you say life imprisonment, but to prescribe the number of years that will keep you in prison
for life,
for the remaining term of your life. So it is something 30 to 40 based on your age. It goes. If you had somebody like Siti Muga, you'd give him, God being gracious, some 30 years. You have Kaluma, some 40 years. And I think would have more. Part of that sentencing, beyond punishment, is also to institute mandatory rehabilitation.
Okay.
I'm speaking from the text I've drafted. I don't know whether Parliament will pass it in its current content, but I'll push very hard for it. And we are looking at mandatory rehabilitation. Some of these people, particularly our young people, the situation of the economy, poverty, the job market, how it is. So some of them get themselves trapped into this immoral sexual behavior, not because they wish, but because of need. And I believe some of those people can be rehabilitated, can be reformed, and then reintegrated back to the society without being pariahs. So I'm instituting mandatory rehabilitation, upon completion of either custodial, sentence or some heavy fine. At the fourth level, I'm looking at those who aid, those who abet, and the law enforcement officers who do not act on these offenses.
On the offense.
Latif, if you look at the laws of...
let me pause you there. I think it's very important for us to be on the same page with you.
Yes.
Define for us homosexuality.
Homosexuality is, same-sex. Same-sex.
Same-sex what?
Kind of sexual relationship. It's where instead of having a man with a woman being intimately engaged, you have a woman with a woman or a man with a man. That is what homosexuality is.
So it only relates to sex?
Yes. Homosexuality.
Only relating to the act of sex?
Correct.
Nothing else?
Nothing else. Homosexuality. Single sex, sexual intercourse.
Okay.
Yeah, that is what it is.
In what part of how many laws outlaw this?
Yes, I've told you, I've counted 3. We have the Penal Code, Chapter 63 of the Laws of Kenya, from sections 162 down to 165. you'll get homosexuality and unnatural, sexual.
So they say they
acts
call this
engaged.
unnatural sexual acts.
Yes, acts. Now that one is the penal code,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have what we call the Sexual Offences Act at various provisions. Okay, if you read them keenly. But I told you the foundational provision in terms of outlawing it in the context of marriage is Article 45, sub-article 2 of the Constitution.
Which talks about marriage, that every adult has a right to marry a person of the opposite sex based on the free consent of the parties.
Correct.
That's on marriage.
Yes, and you note that to what end and what is the thinking around marriage? When a youth in Kenya or your child is growing in Kenya, they are directed to abstain until they are in the unit of the society called, marriage. Yeah, so marriage is the end in terms of our cultural, thinking of actuality. Actually, it should be the do I call it city with your permission? The place for, the kingdom for sexual intimacy. In the African culture, you should not engage, except for a few in sexual intimate relationships other than within the context of marriage. And across Africa, living a few communities, how much they valued virginity.
Acceptable context.
Correct. That is the only acceptable context.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, you talk about, even just going towards looking at some of the elements of this bill, as you mentioned, and that you talk about then requiring adequate time for rehabilitation, and which, according to you, now involve counseling. Now, when you talk about rehabilitation, one would assume that those who then engage in homosexuality, that there's something wrong with them. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Because in order for something to be restituted or rehabilitated, it has gone off course, isn't it?
Yes.
So is that what you're saying? That those who engage in homosexuality have a problem or something is wrong?
Yeah, correctly. It is in two phases, Udo. One is that there are people who find themselves being engaged in homosexuality without their consent. And if you look at section 162, 163, 165 of the penal code, they are provided for. And I can tell you it is very rampant. Do you know how it occurs? You have people pretending to be running children's homes. But they are sodomizing children there. I remember the case in Bomet. And they want to warn you where you have a children's home, if you are a leader from there, be, going in, not just to meet the administration, but to talk to those children. So you have cases where people have such rescue centers, people have orphanages, people have children's home, but really because those children have nowhere else to go behind those walls, they are sodomizing them. They are engaging them in unnatural, sexual, acts and conducts. They are messing up and defiling these children in a manner that is not natural. Okay? Now, that facet of people who find themselves essentially, raped in an unnatural way. You need to rehabilitate them, counsel them, because some are very traumatizing. Look at a situation where you are helpless on the street, somebody gives you hope, then sodomizes you. Now, that category should be cancelled. And then there are those who go into this thing based on poverty, a need to satisfy per time. I was telling you about recruitment of people or our young people into homosexuality, largely in slums and rural areas, currently. You get these people, they are not going because they are claiming my sexual orientation or my philosophy is driven towards that. The thing is that I'm being lured into it by circumstances. Those ones also need to be reformed, rehabilitated, counseled, and reintegrated into the society. So it's both ways.
There are very many communities on this continent who actually, within their traditional languages, have a word for homosexuality. Now, the thing about names and naming, they point you directly to something that has existed in those communities. So, when we talk about homosexuality within a Kenyan context or within an African context, I have to ask myself the question, what exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about the process by which the very idea and the concept has been brought into our sphere by the West? Because it's an aggressive pushing, and that's what the common term is, an in-your-face approach about it. And or are we talking about something that existed in African communities but was not much talked about, or it was talked about quietly, or is it something that in many African communities was completely outlawed? But lastly, does it consider also that there are people who may be that way inclined, meaning it isn't as though they were brought into contact with homosexuality through what you've mentioned. Somebody forced you, somebody raped you, it wasn't something that you thought about, but that somebody is that way inclined, that they find people of the same gender attractive to them. Now, if these possibilities are possibilities that can be discussed, then I have to ask the question I'm asking again. So what really are we discussing?
Yes, let me respond to you. I'm a Luo in terms of ethnic extraction. I've really researched, I've consulted, people, very old people. Unfortunately, I lost my dad last year. Was a bit knowledgeable on this. And in the Luo, the entire Luo language, I have not come across a word in the Luo culture for homosexuality. And so it lends, confirmation to what you're saying, that the idea of homosexuality is being imposed in most of Africa and most African communities as a practice of some external, countries, largely, the West. Sexuality, or the idea of sex in the African culture, was about family, about procreation. And homosexuality does not go towards that. Homosexuality is some entertainment for which sex was not related in the African context. And that is why in most African cultures, as I told you, something like sexual intimacy was or had its place in marriage and nowhere else. I can tell you, if you are a virgin being married in the African context, you know how much you are honored and gifted as a lady.
And valued.
And how much you are valued, how much your parents were gifted. If you are being married to a non-virgin, essentially you are gifted away for free.
You're given at a discount.
Yeah. So yes, you are given not even a discount. In fact, a person could even go with you free of charge. Nobody cares. And you are deemed as somebody who devalued the stature of the family, the respect the family should have. Yeah. So this thing called homosexuality, Muga, is not an African thing. The few cases I've heard of it, whoever were found to engage in them were thrown into the wilderness, tied to a tree in some wilderness and eaten by hyenas, mostly countries of the south, and that is how it is. But I can tell you, larger Kenya, I don't know which ethnic extraction you come from, Brother Latif. You can tell us what it is called in your extraction. It is not there in Luo. And if it is not there, it means it did not exist.
But let me ask you, Mweshimiwa, because this matter has been, in the public conversations for a while. I keep saying we've had a referendum on this particular issue, actually. If you just go back into the Guy Commission, Guy going around the country, the matter was canvassed. Boma's matter was canvassed. In 2010, the matter was canvassed, and it has been a back and forth. Now, the laws as they are, they criminalize, and you've said it clearly, criminalized unnatural sexual acts. And they also directly criminalize same-sex marriage by the Constitution. So why do we need a new law?
Yeah, the reasons.
Because you're saying you're consolidating, you're doing. Why do you need to consolidate? it's clear. If it's about a natural act, there's a law that deals clearly with that. If it's about sexual offense, rape, there's a law that deals with sexual offense and rape. If
Yes.
it's about marriage, the Constitution deals with marriage.
But if beyond consolidation, I've spoken to the inadequacy of the existing law, both in terms of punishment and in terms of dealing with the people who either promote or aid the committal of those offences which are already prescribed in law, and those are not specifically provided for. In most penal laws or laws leading to crime and punishment, you'll have a law stating a punishment against the principal offender, but also people who facilitate or aid it. Okay? Or law enforcement agencies who fail to act against it. I mean, I've just told you we have the laws, and they're very clear. Read them. But go to somewhere in Arboretum, Nairobi, and you'll get a building bigger than that of the Standard Media Group here, with flags flying there openly. Go to the slums around, and you'll get our girls and boys with bangles, the rainbow bangle, which is the signal of membership or belongingness to that society. The question is, how do we have a promotion? How do we have those people openly moving? And our police who are given power to arrest are doing nothing. So this law I'm proposing will seek to punish the act of aiding and abetting this crime. We'll also seek to punish the promotion of this crime, but we'll also sanction the law enforcement officers,
Which is why I asked
who
the
seeing the
meaning.
offences are being committed and do nothing.
That's why I asked you for the
to
meaning.
force them to do something.
Because in your meaning, you expressly described and defined homosexuality as the act of committal of sex by people of the same sex.
Yes.
Now, how would you know somebody is promoting homosexuality just by looking at them, just by how they're dressed, or
Yeah.
how they're walking?
Association, what they want.
Yeah.
When a person proclaims that I belong to this group of people, remember, number one, the Supreme Court made some decision which I believe was a gift to Jill Biden last week. Is she Jill Biden or Biden?
Biden.
Where they are saying that despite these things being criminal, their association should be registered. Okay? Now, that is the argument I see you going to. That so long as you don't find people sexually engaged, you
Then
should
they've not
ignore it.
committed, yeah.
Okay? There is in law what we call an attempt. There is in law the act we call procuring people to commit an offense. And there is a law against association or associating with people who have by themselves proclaimed this is what we stand for. And so the context in which I'm talking about is not a context in which Kaluma has worn this shirt. Okay? But a context where Kaluma openly, overtly is telling you I'm wearing this shirt because I engage in this act which is criminalized by our law. That way we now need to pick you and deal with you.
Let's continue that conversation after this break. The Honorable Peter Kaluma, MP, Homa Bay Town constituency, is our guest. He is intending to introduce a bill in Parliament to criminalize homosexuality and promotion of homosexuality in Kenya. So we're asking for him to explain to us why, what he intends to do with this, and why now.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation with Peter Kaluma, MP, Homa Bay Town constituency, on his proposed bill to criminalize homosexuality and promotion of homosexuality in the country. I was asking him, Washimo, unless you want to go back and completely redefine homosexuality from the way you've defined it, how would you be able to even say that a law enforcement officer has not acted on somebody who is promoting homosexuality? Like you said, if Peter Kaluma is wearing this shirt, or if Peter Kaluma was wearing a rainbow shirt today, we can't just look at him and say, oh, because he's wearing a rainbow shirt, he's then promoting homosexuality.
Yeah, in terms of establishing crime, Latif, in our court procedure, there must be something, more. Unless you are saying that kind of wearing is exclusive to that category of people, the mere fact of wearing alone will not, put the police or anybody else in a situation of arresting the person. There must be, therefore, something more.
Yeah.
And that something in law is something, either direct or circumstantial. Either way to be evidenced by direct evidence, like we find you doing the act, which I can tell you is very difficult.
Of course.
Okay, because intimacy is a sexual issue, and for consenting parties, they'll barely go out to say, we did it. Of course, for a situation where you want a non-consenting party, it will come up. Now, in that case, you'll have direct, evidence coupled with, medical tests. But in law, we have situations where crime can be proved by what we call circumstantial evidence. And if the circumstances satisfy the test of proof, then you're done. And those are the things we want to define in law, so that we don't have Kenyans running after everybody merely because of dressing. You can say you're a murderer, but until you murder, we have no issue with you. So we want to, incisively prescribe these elements in law in a way that the people who are targeted and the people who are prosecuted and are ultimately convicted are indeed people who are partakers of that crime.
You speak about the prohibition, or you also speak about the prohibition of awareness of homosexuality and its activities in Kenya. What do you mean by this?
I'm not talking of prohibition, but promotion. So for the promotion of homosexuality,
to be criminalized as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are also seeking to criminalize the promotion, and one of the things we are going to do is to make it clear. You saw the determination coming from our highest court, last week, where they are saying this thing is criminal to engage in, but though it is criminal, the people have the right to register an association. How do you register an association of criminals? How do you register an association, for instance, of people who are professed, murderers, and something like that? So what the judges are putting us into is to ask, what is this association going to do? And whether if it is going to be registered as an association of homosexuals, what would they be doing in terms of the objects of the association to promote?
The question that comes to mind is,
if
you registered, meaning you legally allow them to register, have you not then legitimized it?
Yeah.
So you want to legitimize an illegality. It's a bit complex. I mean, Kaluma,
it's a contradiction, and this is why I said that within the week, I will go back to the Supreme Court, to seek not appeal now, because you can't appeal from the Supreme Court, but review, a relook. I'm happy that the judges who made the determination are said to have been 5. So let us have the whole, bench, 7 of them, and let us address, these, opaque, misgivings of the 3 judges, because even the 5 did not agree in unanimity. 2 of them, dissented. 3 of them, thought otherwise. And looking at the determination, which I'm doing currently, they lost it on definition of sex as a ground of discrimination, and they lost it on the fact that the fundamental human rights you have in our Constitution. If you read at Article 24, there are just about 3 of them which cannot be limited. All else, including this one's relating to association, this one's relating to, can be limited. And the laws governing registration of non-governmental organizations already limit or restrict the registration of associations whose objects are contrary to law. So when you have, for instance, convicted murderers, going to the NGO board and telling you to register murderers association, you can't, because the purpose and the object, even from the name alone, is inconsistent, contrary with law.
Just for further clarity here, because essentially what we're saying is that having already been declared illegal by the state, in Kenya.
Yes.
The Supreme Court then comes out and says, regardless of it being an illegality in Kenya, the freedom of association still exists, and you can still do that. Is it not? Am I wrong so far?
Yeah, that is what the
You can
Supreme
still
Court is saying.
associate. So, what you're saying then is that the Supreme Court, with this ruling essentially, has tried to go back on what has already been called an illegality, because how can you associate on something that is illegal?
You can't associate as criminals, just as you also cannot associate to engage in a criminal object. And that is what the Supreme Court appears to sanction. The Supreme Court is saying you can associate. I mean, it is strange, and that is why I agree with the Kenyans, among them myself, who are saying we have to face that Supreme Court. But this confirms to you, Latif, the pressure and the magnitude of the push around, legitimization of homosexuality, currently. We have challenges with the Cotonou Protocol, all, international agreements, whether bilateral or multilateral. They now tell you for you to be a party, whether it is the European Union, the larger Europe, or the United States of America.
They bring in that.
They bring it. Human rights.
Yes, and they call it minorities. Now, and they say human rights of the minorities. Latif, pick the Constitution of Kenya. It has been lauded as one document with the best provisions on human rights prescribed. Muga, pick it. Show me this right to be gay or lesbian in it. We have rights to life, rights to associate, rights to do all sorts of rights to fair hearing. What am I saying?
But has it
you
also said
don't
you don't have a right
have the right to be a homosexual, because that is a criminal act in Kenya. What we will do, or the rights you have, is that we will not stone you and kill you because you are engaging in homosexual. We will arrest you, take you to court, and while you are in court, we will grant you your right to fair hearing, and will not deny it to you because you are homosexual. When you are taken to prison, we will not put you in sentences like forced labor if it was not ordered by the court. That is what it means. If you hurt yourselves in the process of your intimate engagements as homosexuals, and you go to the hospital, we will not deny you the right to Medicare or medical health, so long as you can, comply and pay. We will not say you ruptured yourself doing this thing, so you don't have it. We will treat you. But that does not take away the place of the state to punish you for engaging in that act, which is criminal. And that I think is the distinction, the Supreme Court messed. Did they
really mess?
Big time.
In their argument, it's a different thing. I mean, there's a whole issue of a natural sexual act. And then there's the issue of people to come together in whatever form or nature they want to call themselves in and associate.
Latif, let me refer you to Article 24 of the Constitution. What it says is that you have all these rights as a human being, not just as a citizen.
Yes.
But except 3, which includes freedom from torture, slavery and such things, the right to fair hearing, and the right to life unless prescribed. All others are capable of limitation within the ideals, the cultural context, the customs, and what is acceptable to the society. So the right to associate, like those other rights not prescribed as the 3 which are non-abrogable, is capable of limitation. Okay? So and how is it already limited? The Registration Act for non-governmental organizations already tell the non-governmental registration board that you cannot register an association whose naming, whose objects, whose purpose are contrary to law. And I think that is where the Supreme Court messed it up, and that is why we are going back. Number 2, the Supreme Court is telling you that you cannot discriminate against any section of people based on sex. You remember the famous Article 27. The mention of sex in Article 27 is being male, female, or intersex. It is not what you imagine and how you imagine you should be sexually interacting with other people. That is now opinion. It's also capable of restriction. So sex as used is gender, fair and square. You may desire
So
to be
it
with
may
women.
be gender.
Yes, it is
But
gender
not,
straight.
Not the
Not
act.
sexual orientation.
Not the act.
Yes, not the act.
And that's what the Supreme Court was arguing.
Correct.
The use of the word sex in the Constitution is not the act here in Article 27. It's about the gender of a human being.
Yes,
Okay.
no. That is the dissenting judges. The others were saying it includes everything, including your opinion about your sexual orientation.
Yes.
Now, that is where you miss it. When we talk, you should not be discriminated on account of sex. We are saying gender, you're either male, female, or intersex. And I can tell
For
you,
example,
intersex.
if somebody was to be sitting for a job interview,
Correct.
they cannot be discriminated against because they're a woman.
Yes.
Or that if you are going to apply for the job of a nanny and you're a man, for example, going against what cultural roles would
Correct.
be, you cannot be discriminated against because you're a man.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Not because of who you imagine you should be intimate with.
Has the Constitution defined sex?
It has
Gender.
not. It has not.
Or gender.
There is no explicit definition. But I can tell you in
And there
terms
you
of
go. You're the one who's making it only 3.
no. In terms of our law, there are currently only 3, and we have male, we have female, and then we have the intersex. The intersex are the people we used to call hermaphrodites. So you have both organs, and that administratively is now there. I sit in the Committee on Administration National Security. It's already recognized even before it is prescribed. So we have those 3, gender, which are now accepted. And if you look at them, Muga, they are natural. They're natural. They are not things you've had something to do with. And even if you were to have a change in mind, this is where I fault our Supreme Court and this category of people. You could be born, you look like a man the way I do, but your hormonal inclination
It's female.
are more towards female. Okay?
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa. What do? Designate yourself. Say, my hormones are inclined towards female. And be a female. Be a female. Okay? If your hormones are inclined towards being man, my sister here, be a man.
What does that mean?
And so long as
Be a man.
what do you
or
mean,
Be,
be
a
a
woman.
female?
What do you mean,
That-
be a female? Because we know testosterone, estrogen. I mean, if we want to get down to the nitty gritty, and we
Yes.
find that some people have an oversupply in one area or another, how then do you say be a man or be a woman?
the
What does that
choice
mean?
the choice they have with their doctors, and by the way, it is a deep medical discussion going around. The choice you have is that you change your physical appearance to that of the gender.
So you become a
Your
transgender.
you become a transgender.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Once
the T in LGBTQ.
Correct. Now, once you become a male, don't sleep with a male because you said your hormones are directed towards a male.
Yeah.
Now go for female in terms of your sexual engagements. You get what I'm talking about?
Can you do that with somebody who is transgender, but their physical appearance is female?
So long as she has moved and become a female, and have moved and have become a man, or have moved and
So we
become
should-
a female and she has moved and become a man, that is.
So we should
intersex.
respect how you associate, how you define yourself.
No, not how you
If
define
you
yourself.
define yourself as female at that point, and you begin your journey towards now becoming a female, we should respect that from the moment you define yourself.
Once you define yourself physically as a male, our law says interact with females sexually. If you define yourself as a female, if I were to do today, then I cannot be found with my sister here. I should be found with you. That is what our law says.
Well, Shimiru, I
but the
hear
law
you.
says you can reorient.
But what I hear
you are
saying
being
is
male or
that
female.
you're sticking very closely to the law here. No matter how repugnant this may be to you as an individual, what you're doing is that you're sticking to the law. And the law says 1, 2, 3. And so everything as an offshoot of this must then cling to this mother issue of the law.
That is why the law exists. In fact, the law gives you choices. I've told you I feel I'm female, and medically I'm confirmed to be more oriented towards being female, I have the right to go and, change my body, okay? Particularly my genitalia. Change it. And once I change it and become a female, I should not be seen with you. I should now be seen with Muga or Latif, sexually engaged. So you have the choice to change.
Female. Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
but once I'm female, now I should sexually interact with a male. That is what our law says.
Mheshimiwa,
You cannot, Kaluma cannot become female. Then he still goes out with the females. You go then out with the male. That is what our law says.
Do I hear you to be saying that if our laws stated otherwise, then this would not be an issue?
Mm-hmm. If the law said that it was legal, it would not be a problem.
And I can tell you our laws will never say that.
Why not?
Because laws come from a societal context and are informed by the thinking, the customs, the cultures of a society. So, law is not just what you prescribe. If you go to a country like the United Kingdom, do they have a written constitution?
No, they don't.
The law is also culture.
They have traditions.
You are big traditions. You are big, moral values. So the law is not just what is written.
And it's dynamic.
It's dynamic.
Just the same way society is dynamic.
Correct.
Do you think our society is starting to move that direction?
It is not. This thing is being imposed by people who colonized us before, and people who having colonized us and picked all our resources, taken them to their countries, used the labor of Africans. You know the history of the United States with slavery. You know the history of the United Kingdom and the larger West, how they sat and decided this and this. You know what is happening in DRC now. They come with smaller, freebies and tell you, for you to do this, we want to continue what we started with the Africans the other end. And I'm telling you, go to the United States. I have videos here I'll be showing you. Look at all these homosexual-based marriages, these gay marriages. Who is the man in them and who is the female? You had very strong, well-bodied African men are the ones being married by white, So it is something they started there. An African is a slave, an African is a low class, an African is a male who will be slept with by another male.
Subjugation of the
subjugated, and it is in their psyche. Now they are bringing it across to Africa, and I can tell you, Latif, to have
But
survived.
why are you buying it? Let me ask you this. President Uhuru Kenyatta was asked this several times in his reign about the issue of legalizing same-sex marriage and homosexuality in Kenya. He said it is not a matter that's in the public domain of national importance. William Ruto, last year, after he was sworn in as president, he was asked the same question on CNN. He said, it is not a matter of national importance at present in Kenya. Peter Kaluma, why are you making it a matter of national importance at present?
Let me tell you, I want to agree with our presidents. And if you watch at how they failed to be explicit about it being prohibited, I watched the interview of Ruto. I watched the interview of Kenyatta. And I've watched other African leaders. Somebody like Museveni comes out very explicitly. Mugabe used to, the Zambian president does, but these ones are prevaricating. And the prevarication confirms the international pressure I'm talking about. You are being told your country is needy, your economy is not doing well, we are the World Bank, we are the European Union, we are the, which other one is this? IMF. We can grant you some loans to continue running the country so long as the human rights of these people, is taken care of. But the fact of the matter is that when you move across our society into small towns, as small as Homa Bay town, which I'm privileged to lead, go to Shauriako slum, go to Makongeni slum, go to Kondele in Kisumu, go to Kibra Madare. The needs of our people, the poverty among our people is being exploited to recruit them into this nonsense. So it's become a rampant issue.
Mheshimiwa Peter Kaluma, thank you for joining us today. When you publish the bill, we'll invite you so we can look at it clause by clause.
Thank you.